You know?
It's all about possibilities, I guess. Possibilities of interestingness. How interesting can jobs get? How interesting can we be? So there's no harm in 1.2 million losing a job that they hate and makes them suicidal if they can find an even better job. And there's no problem with any of us not having a conventional old-fashioned job if we have a much better, much more interesting job. The problem with this much better, much more interesting job is it probably requires a much better, much more interesting person. And are we much better, much more interesting people? There's probably a limit to that. And so there are a lot of people who would be highly challenged if they need to make themselves interesting enough to take one of these very interesting jobs that will replace the jobs that we're losing. And then how many of those very interesting jobs are there going to be? Well, I think in the short term, there will be the potential for some people of losing a relatively dull, mundane job for which there is a past precedent, and having a really exciting job that nobody ever had such a job before in the world, and you're really doing it well, and that's all fine. But what fraction of human beings are going to be able to do that?
Yeah, look, Kim, right now, fast foods are a fad, right? Everybody's into fast foods. But there's no need for us to hire these kids off the street, right? I mean, the fact is that we could run most McDonald's and we could run, Tim Hortons by robots. There's just no need for us to hire these. But where did all of the jobs come from that was created in Canada? Okay, I mean, this is the real world we're dealing with, Ralph. Yeah.
So if you take that, I guess eating there is maybe amongst some people fashionable. Leonard Cohen likes to eat at McDonald's. So other people like that. Now, why would you like why would you like to eat at a particular place? Well, suppose that you're into humans doing things. It's a world where humans are doing fewer and fewer things, and you like that restaurant because actually everything produced there is made by a human being, and you like that. So for a while, that could be a fashionable thing. You have some restaurants where machines are doing the cooking, and maybe the food is better, but the nuance, the kind of feeling you get inside may be for a while better if you go to a restaurant where humans are actually creating the food. So you can imagine that in the short term, things could go either way, and there might be a period where your job's more interesting, where the restaurants are more interesting, maybe if you're lucky. But in the long run, it's hard to think that you're not right. You are right. You need many fewer jobs, so we'll be paying people to be on permanent vacation. And depending upon how intrinsically lazy you are, that may sound wonderful, or it may be your worst nightmare, So that probably is a reality.
Well, there's a trend that I think is very apropos of this discussion, and that's the trend to buying from Amazon and online. And what this is obviously going to do is to ruin the mall. I mean, the big malls like West Edmonton will be a shell because people are buying online. In fact, women are buying clothes online, and that for me is the ultimate kicker. I mean, I've accompanied a number of women, in shopping malls, and I know that this kind of procedure is endemic to a certain species among us. And once that goes, I think the whole mall thing is kaput. I think one of the problems and what makes us human is precisely the fact that we can blow it. Sometimes we do things that we know darn well that's not the best thing for me to do, but I'm just going to do it anyway, right? Like, Every time you have a big fat steak, you know, if you've read the nutritions, right, you say, well, you know, maybe I shouldn't be doing that. My heart and all that stuff, right?
One of the things that's appealing about the Sony Aibo robotic dog is it's programmed to fail like, I don't know, 2 times out of 9, something like that. So for instance, when it picks up that red bone, it'd be really boring if it always did it absolutely correct. And it could do that, right? It could always do it the same, so it's always successful. But you as a human being would not find that appealing. You're sort of rooting for the dog when it fails sometimes. So in fact, strangely, humans find failure and lack of predictability and the kind of background chaos. You remember Ray Kurzweil points out that exponential curve, what's behind it is the most enormous chaos you can imagine, and then it kind of all evens out and you get the straight curve.
Well, you hope so.
But you've got the most enormous stupidity, brilliance, companies failing, companies succeeding, all that sort of evens out to give you a smooth curve. But could we have a life where actually the robotic dogs don't make mistakes anymore? They always get the bone. Wouldn't that be a terrible
I
life?
would think that would be awful. Absolutely terrible. Yeah. I mean, I think that's what makes humans, is the possibility and, in fact, the almost essentialness of error and goofing things up and blowing it. And
Yeah. Well, you know, Osmer Zayan couldn't be here today, so I'm going to speak for him.
You got
if
a
one
question
can
from Osmer?
do that. But anyway, he felt that we should teach ethics to machines, and they would then get better at it than we are.
I don't believe that. I
Yeah.
mean, you tell Osmer that when you see him, okay?
Well, we have you on tape, actually, you know, debating him before. But no, I know that you don't believe it. But the same way that a robotic dog can perfectly pick up a bone every time, the things that are quasi-ethics, that are maybe simplified ethics, or, you know, ethics for dummies or something, obviously the machines could learn how to do those basic things very well. But then is there existential risk in there that by being too ethical they would kill us all off or something? I don't know. But,
well, I mean, all I have to do is look at my wife and how we make pasta, right?
Right.
And she says I do a lousy job of it. I just say, look, if you sit down and enjoy it, what difference does it make that it's al dente, you know, 1.5 seconds longer than what she thinks? So who's going to program this machine, my wife or me?
Yes.
Okay, that's going to make the pasta.
Yeah. We need more diversity here.
I personally agree with you because, like, who's to say what's right and what's wrong in like terms of programming it? So, like, that's all I really want to say. And I kind of agree with Earle in terms of
anyway,
like,
go ahead, man. Let me have it. What were
no,
you
I
gonna
say I agree with you. Like, the
Yeah, but
singularity,
you
in my
can't
opinion, is
agree
going to
with
be
everything
bad.
I say. Come on now.
I'm not. I'm disagreeing with Kim right now. You have like a perfect image of the world with technology, and I don't think that's how it's going to work, really. Because, I mean, what's the point of having us around if humans can do, or robots can do everything way better, efficiently? I mean, all we do is like produce waste, if you think about it, if we're not doing anything in the future. So, if robots were to have ethics or something, in terms of like the overall planet, why would they keep us around? Like, we're just kind of bottom feeding.
So you have
them.
to answer that, Kim.
Yeah, well, I think we're assuming simplicity and something that's more enormously complicated than anything we've ever considered before. I mean, don't you think, first of all, the robots, their intelligence won't necessarily be like ours at all. Their reasoning won't be like ours at all. So the way in which they make decisions will be like nothing we've ever encountered in our own heads. And it's not simple. It's like not the first sentient machine will say, I learned that the first question was, am I going to wipe out mankind or not? I don't think that's going to be it. I think it's going to be gradual. There are going to be many other important questions. We don't know what they're going to be. It's going to be just enormously complicated what happens.
I mean, I think one of the interesting things for me is that we're going to have machines that drive the car, right? I mean, so when I go to cross the street, you know, like my chair said to me the other day, for goodness sake, watch the buses when you're crossing the street because, you know, we need your publications. So, I mean, it's going to be great, you know, and we have machines that will sense that I want to cross the street and put the brakes on. You know, my problem is, what if the machine fails? Yeah, and that's my same problem with not having a pilot up there, you know, driving the plane. I mean, drones go down, so that means, you know, the guy on the ground that's operating the joystick, you know, maybe he doesn't have everything right. So, doubting Thomas.
I think it's probably important to realize also that we're only arguing from one perspective of the ethical dilemma. And this is a Western perspective. This is may even more specifically be a Canadian Western's perspective, and so there's, you know, we're arguing like there's ethics comes from one perspective, and then, you know, robots will find their own way, whereas, you know, there might be 20, 30, 40, an infinite amount of perspectives on what is right and wrong. I think that's probably an important.
So an ethical perspective is Canadian?
No. I'm just saying that what we you know, if you go to an ethics board here,
Yeah.
and they discuss what they deem as being ethical, maybe that's different to what they
Yeah,
discuss
but
as being.
honest, man, that's not my argument. My argument is that, you know, the muddier we are with ethics, the more human we are. And so you could be British, you could be African, you could be Canadian. We're not going to agree on much of anything, right? And I think that's the beauty of being human. I could say, no, I don't like that. I don't think that's important. If you were a machine, I couldn't. Okay, so I don't think that's Canadian. I think it's human. Yeah. All right, are we done?
So we're out of time. Thank you very
Okay.
much for
Thank
very
you.
lively debate.